A single spotlight cut through the darkness, illuminating a 13-year-old girl standing center stage. Her voice, raw, untamed, and blazing with an intensity that belied her years, filled every corner of the packed theater. The audience sat transfixed, barely breathing as Courtney Hadwin poured every ounce of her being into the song. No one in that sold-out American auditorium could have predicted that a diminutive teenager from a quiet village in County Durham, England, would command their attention so completely, so instantly. Today, we follow the extraordinary trajectory of her rise, the audition that transformed her existence, the devastating setback that threatened to silence her forever, and the unbreakable spirit that carried her through the bleakest chapter of her young life. Stay with us as we trace every peak and valley of Courtney Hadwin's remarkable journey, from a hopeful young dreamer stepping onto a foreign stage to the catastrophic accident that nearly ended it all, and discover precisely how her indomitable will saw her through the most harrowing period she would ever face. The world saw a fearless performer commanding the spotlight, but what anguish lurked behind that powerhouse voice? Before the glare of fame altered everything, who was Courtney Hadwin when no cameras were watching? Courtney Hadwin entered the world on May 6, 2004, in Hesleden, a modest village nestled in the rolling landscapes of County Durham, England. Her parents, Anne-Marie and Paul Hadwin, were hard-working people who, despite demanding schedules, always carved out moments to cultivate their daughter's extraordinary musical gifts. From her earliest years, Courtney was immersed in the rich tapestry of soul music. Her mother would fill their home with the sounds of legendary artists, and this constant exposure helped shape the singer Courtney would become. Even as a toddler, she demonstrated an almost supernatural connection to melody and rhythm. By age 3, she would dance with her arms raised high whenever music played, her entire body responding to the beat with an instinctive joy that delighted her parents. They cherished these impromptu living room performances, recognizing even then that their daughter possessed something rare. When Courtney turned 8, her school introduced formal singing instruction. Her music teacher immediately recognized something exceptional. The crystalline purity of her tone combined with a surprising emotional depth that seemed to emerge from somewhere far beyond her years. The teacher encouraged her to join the school choir, and those weekly rehearsals in the echoing school hall became the foundation upon which her confidence was built. Standing alongside her classmates during school assemblies, performing for peers and teachers alike, instilled in her a profound sense of pride. Her schoolmates quickly dubbed her the rocker girl, after witnessing her ability to sing and move with a natural stage presence that left them in awe. Courtney possessed an abundance of confidence. She never shrank from performing before any audience, no matter how large. Her dedication to her craft was absolute. She never missed a music lesson, never skipped a practice session. She learned the crucial discipline of breath control, understanding that proper technique would allow her voice to soar to its highest potential. Before the school day began, she would stand before her bedroom mirror running through vocal scales, and even at this tender age she began composing her own lyrics. At 10, she gathered neighborhood children into an informal singing group they called Durham Soul. The parents rallied behind them, even contributing funds to purchase instruments, guitars and drums that would give their young voices accompaniment. Small crowds began gathering to watch them perform, and the community started taking notice of Courtney's exceptional gift. A journalist from a local newspaper wrote a brief feature about the young singer with the angelic voice. The headline proclaimed, "A young girl brings soul to County Durham." That article swelled her parents with pride and gave Courtney the validation she needed, the confirmation that her voice mattered, that her gift was worth nurturing. She also began training at Shotton Hall Theatre School. Every weekend, Anne-Marie would drive her to lessons where a dedicated vocal coach worked with her on phrasing and control. Courtney learned to mold her voice to match the emotional landscape of each song she tackled. Expressing genuine feeling through sound became her paramount objective. Her first significant performance venue was a small festival in Durham City, where thousands gathered. Standing beneath those unfamiliar lights initially terrified her, but she quickly found her center and her confidence. When she delivered the final note of her set, the applause thundered through the crowd. Even strangers who had never heard her name cheered, moved by the power and authenticity of her performance. Friends and classmates frequently requested her presence at birthday celebrations and neighborhood gatherings. Performing before familiar faces taught her the intimate art of sharing emotion through music. She chose her repertoire carefully, selecting songs whose lyrics resonated with her own inner experiences. That deliberate selection made every performance authentic and deeply affecting for her listeners. By 12, her aspirations had outgrown her hometown. She saved every penny of her pocket money, determined to contribute toward the cost of plane tickets that might carry her to larger stages. The dream of sharing her gift with the world became her driving force. Late at night, she would write down the goals she hoped to achieve. This child was undeniably born with a rare gift, and that gift made her extraordinary. You can feel it, can't you? The encouragement of family and friends made every step of her journey feel achievable. Her mother constantly reminded her to work tirelessly, remain humble, and never lose sight of her true purpose. These words became her mantra as she prepared to venture far from everything she knew. Dreaming of a world beyond Hesleden marked the opening chapter of her extraordinary story. She was merely a child with a battered suitcase and an impossible dream. But would America recognize her gift, or would she disappear into the anonymous crowd? What transpired when she finally stepped onto that legendary stage? In the summer of 2018, 13-year-old Courtney Hadwin disembarked from a plane in Omaha, Nebraska, clutching a small suitcase, a worn leather jacket, and a determination that burned brighter than the Midwestern sun. She had never before set foot on American soil. Family friends had cautioned her about the disorienting effects of jet lag, advising her to rest immediately upon arrival, but her mind was singularly focused on one objective: earning her place on America's Got Talent. On the morning of her audition, Courtney arrived at the CenturyLink Center, her emotions a turbulent mixture of exhilaration and anxiety. Inside the holding area, hopeful performers, singers, dancers, and variety acts rehearsed in clusters. Production staff called names at random intervals, leaving contestants to endure agonizing stretches of silence as they awaited their moment. Courtney clutched her fedora in one hand and her audition paperwork in the other. She drew a deep breath and followed the producers through a narrow corridor that opened onto the legendary stage. The judges' table sat bathed in brilliant light. Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, Howie Mandel, and Mel B observed each act with measured reserve, withholding applause until the final moment. When Courtney walked to center stage, a hush fell over the audience. She wore a black leather jacket over a white shirt, dark jeans, and her hair cascaded in loose waves around her shoulders. Silence enveloped the hall as the band struck the opening chords of Piece of My Heart. Initially, her voice emerged softly, almost tentatively. She closed her eyes, feeling the rhythm pulse through her chest. Then, in an instant, her true power erupted. Her voice cracked with longing and strength, carrying decades of soul tradition in a body that had barely entered adolescence. She stomped her foot in time with the music, moving with the authority of a performer twice her age. Every note was saturated with grit and authentic feeling. Simon leaned forward, his eyebrows arching in astonishment. Heidi sat bolt upright, her eyes widening in disbelief. Howie covered his mouth with his hand, unable to conceal his shock. Mel B tapped her fingers against the table, hungry for more. When the final chord resonated through the theater, the audience detonated in a roar of approval. The judges rose to their feet, applauding her astonishing performance. Then came the pivotal moment. Simon struck his golden buzzer, sending a cascade of golden confetti raining down upon the stage. Courtney's eyes flew open. She saw Simon smiling, reached for her fedora, and glanced toward the judges before seeking out her mother, who was weeping tears of transcendent joy backstage. A producer handed her a microphone for a brief interview. With a voice trembling with emotion, she said simply, "I love to sing. It makes me feel free." The profound simplicity of her answer resonated with millions. Her performance clip exploded across social media that very evening. By morning, it had accumulated over 10 million views on YouTube alone. News organizations from the New York Times to the BBC published articles hailing her as the voice of a teen Janis Joplin. Headlines celebrated her ferocious style and raw vocal power. Newspapers in her hometown of Hesleden ran front-page stories describing how their local girl had conquered America. Producers invited Courtney back the following day for an additional private audition. In a glass-walled room, cameras captured her meeting fellow contestants and judges once more. She performed an original composition written by her vocal coach, Laura, titled Heart and Soul. Even without the full theatrical lighting, her voice carried emotion into every corner of that intimate space. Simon praised her creative courage in selecting material that reflected her authentic self. "You are not merely imitating anyone," he told her. "You are entirely yourself." That moment proved decisive. The judges ensured she would advance directly to the live performance shows. She exited the audition room surrounded by fellow performers, all embracing her and offering congratulations. In subsequent interviews, Courtney spoke of missing her family and friends, but also acknowledged a growing sense of belonging on the America's Got Talent stage. That night, her phone overflowed with messages. She gained followers across the globe who celebrated her on every social media platform. Messages arrived from as distant as Japan and Brazil, thanking her for sharing her music. One fan wrote, "Your voice makes me feel alive." Another said, "You remind me of my daughter." Courtney was so overwhelmed with joy that tears streamed down her face. She realized that her singing had forged connections with people she would never meet, across cultures and continents she had never visited. Over the following weeks, videos of her audition continued accumulating views at an unprecedented rate. Talk shows clamored for appearances. The Today Show invited her to perform on live national television. She balanced her academic responsibilities by attending online classes, with her parents providing crucial support in managing this extraordinary juggling act. In every interview, she remained focused on the music itself rather than the trappings of fame. Her journey from a humble hometown choir in England to a standing ovation audition in the United States demonstrated both her extraordinary talent and her remarkable courage. She was devoted to her art, and that devotion represented her greatest strength. That audition became the moment the world discovered Courtney Hadwin. From that instant forward, nothing would ever be the same. America's Got Talent had found its newest star, and Courtney Hadwin had found her moment to illuminate the world. By the time the live performance shows commenced, Courtney Hadwin had transcended the label of mere contestant. She had become a headline. Within hours of her audition airing, viewers across the planet had fallen in love with her. Fans shared her performance videos across social media platforms, tagging friends and family members. News sites published stories with headlines like, "Teen rock star from England steals the show." In less than 24 hours, her video surpassed 10 million YouTube views. Suddenly, this young girl from County Durham found herself at the epicenter of a media whirlwind she had only ever imagined in her most ambitious dreams. She arrived in Los Angeles under a special chaperone arrangement. Her academic workload intensified. Her tutor assisted with schoolwork as she traveled constantly, requiring support to maintain her grades. Yet she carved out dedicated time to prepare for her next performance. Each morning, she rose early to practice before breakfast, warming up her voice with various scales, stretching her chest and shoulders to support every note with proper technique. Her coach observed carefully, offering guidance on timing and breath control. These incremental daily improvements built her confidence and refined her craft. Afternoons brought rehearsals on the America's Got Talent soundstage. Brilliant lights hung overhead, and cameras glided along tracks to capture every angle. Courtney learned to work with spotlights and atmospheric effects so that nothing would distract from her vocal delivery. She practiced maneuvering with the microphone stand and mastering the dramatic pause at the conclusion of musical phrases. Producers and directors were astounded by her focus. One crew member remarked that she handled each new challenge with a maturity far exceeding her years. When live show week arrived, Courtney selected "Maybe" by Janis Joplin. She stood on a stage framed by glowing arches bathed in deep crimson light. Before she began, the audience sat in reverent silence. Then she opened her mouth and unleashed a sound of staggering power and emotional depth. The crowd rose to their feet midway through the song, their cheers so thunderous they filled the entire arena. The judges smiled and nodded in approval. As she finished, confetti cannons erupted, showering her in shimmering streamers. The applause echoed for minutes. Her name appeared on music charts, entertainment blogs, and fan sites. Within 24 hours, her performances ranked among the most viewed clips in the talent show's history. Talk shows contacted her management team. Her first major appearance came on the Ellen DeGeneres Show. When she walked onto that stage, Ellen enveloped her in a warm embrace. They laughed as Ellen attempted to match her gravelly vocal tone. Courtney shared that she missed her dog back home and that hearing applause made her heart feel complete. Next came The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy surprised her with a live drumbeat backing her as she delivered a blues classic. The audience clapped along with the rhythm. After the song, Jimmy and his bandleader, Questlove, praised her vocal control and passionate delivery. They joked about forming a band together. Courtney laughed and replied that she would consider it once she completed her schoolwork. Every appearance amplified her rising fame. Record labels extended offers for studio recording time. Merchandise companies inquired about hoodies and t-shirts bearing her image. However, Courtney remained grounded. She remembered her mother's words, to sing in order to share joy, not to pursue fame. After each interview, she called home to maintain her connection with family. She read messages from fans who found hope through her music. She would journal brief reflections. "Today, I sang for millions. Tomorrow I will sing with my heart because I love it. From a single audition clip to worldwide recognition, Courtney Hadwin's journey became the story of an overnight sensation. Yet beneath that sudden fame lay countless hours of practice, unwavering focus, and the same purpose she had held as a small child: to sing with every fiber of her being. Millions knew her as the fearless girl with the powerhouse voice. But what happens when the spotlight dims, and a single rainy night alters everything forever? What truly occurred on that fateful evening? In early October 2018, Courtney Hadwin joined a modest tour supporting fellow America's Got Talent finalists. After weeks of live performances, the group traveled by bus from Minneapolis toward Madison, Wisconsin. Their itinerary featured back-to-back performances at various theaters. Courtney typically sat near a window, reading messages from fans on her phone. Outside, heavy rain drummed against the glass. The driver, experienced with long-distance routes, maintained steady speed beneath the highway lights. Other passengers rested in their seats, blankets draped across their laps. Luggage occupied overhead racks, and instruments stood secured in padded cases. As they approached a curve on Interstate 94, no one could foresee that within seconds, their journey would take a devastating turn. At approximately midnight, the bus entered a stretch of road notorious for treacherous surfaces. Rain had fallen for hours, creating pools of standing water along the shoulder. As the bus navigated the curve, a powerful gust of wind pushed the vehicle toward the guardrail. The driver braked hard but could not regain complete control. The bus skidded sideways for nearly 20 feet. Courtney, shifting in her seat, felt a violent jolt that threw her forward. Overhead compartments burst open, and cases tumbled from their secured positions. The screech of metal against metal and the clatter of glass echoed through the bus. Then, with a final lurch, the vehicle came to rest against the guardrail. Silence followed the impact, broken only by muffled cries and the persistent hiss of rain against the windows. Courtney rubbed her forehead where it had struck the luggage rack. She unfastened her seatbelt and rose slowly, assessing herself for injuries. Her right knee throbbed with sharp pain, and a thin trickle of blood ran down her temple. Fellow musicians ahead of her stirred, shaken but conscious. The keyboardist clutched his wrist, wincing in agony. The tour manager pressed his shoulder, which bore a bruise from a loose case. Outside, headlights from passing vehicles illuminated the bus leaning against the barrier. Several motorists stopped to assist, shining flashlights inside and contacting emergency services. Within minutes, first responders arrived. 2 ambulances, a fire truck, and a highway patrol cruiser pulled up behind the disabled bus. Paramedics boarded quickly, carrying stretchers and medical equipment. They spoke calmly to each passenger, evaluating injuries systematically. Courtney sat on a folding chair beside the bus. A paramedic gently examined her knee, confirming a fracture. He wrapped it in a soft brace and elevated her leg. Another responder cleaned the cut on her forehead. Courtney answered all questions, describing the crash and rating her pain level. She agreed to transport to a nearby hospital for x-rays and additional treatment. At St. Mary's Hospital in Madison, doctors conducted comprehensive scans on Courtney. They confirmed a fracture of her right kneecap and a mild concussion. The knee injury would not require surgery, but she would need 6 weeks of restricted movement and physical therapy. The concussion necessitated rest and limited screen time. Nurses settled her into a private room. A doctor explained each phase of the treatment plan, showing her a schedule for therapy sessions. Courtney listened attentively, but she kept asking how she could return to singing safely. News of the crash spread rapidly. Social media feeds flooded with posts wishing her swift recovery. A fan-created page organized messages that played as a slideshow on her bedside television. Fellow contestants from America's Got Talent sent video messages expressing relief that no one had sustained life-threatening injuries. Judges Simon Cowell and Heidi Klum recorded get-well messages, praising Courtney's courage. A GoFundMe page appeared almost immediately, established by a friend. It raised $32,000 in under 48 hours to cover travel and therapy expenses. Courtney watched these messages with gratitude and a small smile, deeply moved by support from around the world. Meanwhile, tour dates were canceled. Theater managers and ticket agents contacted fans who had purchased tickets for performances in Wisconsin and Illinois. Refunds were processed, and many fans offered to donate their ticket costs to the recovery fund. The tour bus company issued a statement attributing the crash to heavy rain and strong winds, promising a comprehensive safety review. Courtney's team focused entirely on her healing, arranging for medical supervision during her return journey to England. Once doctors cleared her for travel. In interviews from her hospital room, she expressed disappointment over cancelled performances but profound gratitude for the care and concern shown by so many. After 2 days in Madison, Courtney flew back to England under medical supervision. Her parents met her at the airport, assisting her through customs and into the waiting vehicle. Back home in County Durham, Courtney settled in. Physical therapy began at a small clinic near Hesleden. Each session incorporated gentle stretches, balance exercises, and strengthening drills for her knee. Concussion guidelines restricted her reading and phone use to brief intervals. During breaks, she practiced light humming to maintain her vocal condition. Family friends delivered meals and reading materials to help pass the time. Though the crash had halted her frenetic schedule, it also provided unexpected moments of rest and reflection. Courtney found herself writing lyrics about resilience and hope. She sketched concepts for future performances in her garden shed studio. Visits from neighbors and school friends brought laughter and comfort. The ordeal of injury became an opportunity to remember why she had fallen in love with singing in the first place. With continuous care and unwavering support, Courtney began to envision a path back to the stage, ready to transform a tragic night into an integral chapter of her life story. When Courtney walked through her front door in Hesleden, she felt an overwhelming wave of relief. The familiar aroma of her mother's cooking welcomed her, and her father's garage tools clinked softly from the adjacent room. She moved deliberately, leaning on crutches with a brace encasing her right knee. Every step triggered memories of that rain-soaked night on the bus. Yet here, surrounded by family and friends, she found solace and the opportunity to rebuild. Physical therapy commenced the following week. Her therapist was warm and compassionate, making it easy for Courtney to establish trust. She learned to bend her knee only slightly at first, employing gentle exercises that emphasized slow, controlled movement. She sat on a padded table and flexed her foot back and forth. She balanced on one leg for mere seconds before resting again. Each movement felt foreign, as though she were learning to walk for the first time. With every session she observed small victories: 2 additional degrees of bend, 5 more seconds of balance. Because doctors had cautioned her to rest her head, Courtney limited her phone usage and avoided extended screen time. She used her morning hours to study music theory and attempt writing new lyrics. She composed songs exploring her life experiences, the confrontation with fear, the discovery of inner strength, and music's remarkable capacity to heal. She wrote about raindrops patterning a window, comparing them to the rhythm of a song awaiting birth. Those pages became a chronicle of her journey. Afternoons found her in the garden shed at the rear of their property. Her family had transformed it into a modest studio. A microphone stood on a small stand, 2 speakers waited on a wooden shelf, and a laptop connected to recording software allowed her to hear each note. Initially, she hummed softly to maintain vocal conditioning without strain. Soon she progressed to gentle covers of songs by Aretha Franklin and Etta James. Her voice sounded tender and clear. She recorded a subdued version of "Natural Woman," careful not to push beyond her current capabilities. News of her recovery spread through her hometown. Neighbors arrived with food and companionship, offering emotional support. Friends visited with handmade cards and cheerful drawings. One evening, several local singers gathered outside her window to perform a brief concert in her driveway. Their voices rose beneath a street lamp, and Courtney watched from the porch, her crutches resting beside her. She wept tears of gratitude for people who cared so deeply. As weeks passed, her therapist increased the intensity of Courtney's rehabilitation. She added lateral steps with a resistance band and light lunges that tested her control. Courtney felt a mild ache in her muscles but welcomed it as evidence of progress. When she achieved 30 minutes of continuous exercise without pain, she and her therapist shared a celebratory high five. That moment felt like winning a significant victory. By late November, doctors approved light singing tests. She returned to the garden shed and stood without crutches for the first time. She drew a deep breath, centered herself, and sang a few scales. Her voice remained strong. She experienced no strain while singing in her characteristic tone. A profound joy filled her as she realized she could still share her gift. She recorded a video of her practice and uploaded it to her channel. Comments poured in, with fans praising her courage and noting a newfound depth in her tone. In early December, organizers of a charity benefit at Newcastle City Hall invited her to perform. The event raised funds for young musicians facing injuries. Backstage, Courtney changed into an elegant green dress. Her knee brace remained concealed beneath the hem. When she walked onto the stage, silence fell over the audience. She opened with a soft ballad of her own composition, drawn from the lyrics she had written during recovery. The song built gradually, each verse gaining strength, until she lifted her voice in a clear, soaring climax. The crowd rose to their feet, applauding continuously. As she left the stage that night, she felt genuine pride. Her recovery had not been easy, but it had revealed her capacity for overcoming adversity. The crash had interrupted her journey, however, it had also taught her patience and persistence. With her voice restored and her spirit renewed, she looked ahead to live performances and creating new music. Healing had given her hope to continue building her career and reaching for greater heights. She had rediscovered hope on that stage. But what happens when a rising star chooses to give back rather than chase fame? How did Courtney decide to honor her gift next? After months of healing, Courtney stepped back into the spotlight in early 2019. America's Got Talent invited her to join Stars for Hope, a benefit tour supporting young performers facing hardship. She took the stage at Chicago's Rosemont Theater. When she opened with "Piece of My Heart," the audience rose to applaud before the first chorus concluded. Her voice carried warmth and power, earning cheers that resonated long after she exited the stage. Next, a special concert called Girls of Soul assembled female singers to celebrate groundbreaking voices. Held at London's Jazz Café, the show featured artists covering classic soul songs. Courtney joined for the final number, delivering a stirring rendition of "Try a Little Tenderness." Fellow performers surrounded her in matching outfits. As she hit the closing high note, lights bathed the stage in soft blue, and the crowd delivered a standing ovation. Backstage, she shared meaningful moments with other singers, exchanging experiences as emerging musicians. Record labels took notice. In spring 2019, Courtney recorded an extended play at a studio in Newcastle. She co-wrote 2 original songs, one about conquering fear, the other about gratitude. She also recorded covers of Aretha Franklin's Respect and Etta James's At Last. Producers praised her ability to blend vintage styling with fresh energy. By summer, the EP appeared on Spotify and Apple Music, garnering positive reviews from music blogs and radio stations. Beyond recording, Courtney embraced the opportunity to give back. A local arts council in County Durham invited her to lead a masterclass for aspiring singers. In a small theater, she taught microphone technique and breath support. Over 50 students attended, many arriving with trembling nerves but departing with newfound confidence. She told them, "Your voice is your story. Sing it true." Afterward, students lined up for photographs and autographs, clutching notebooks filled with her guidance. She was undeniably famous now, but she remained accessible and genuine. To help others afford lessons, Courtney launched a small scholarship fund in her hometown. Partnering with her first vocal coach, she provided 2 annual grants covering 6 months of singing instruction. Applicants wrote brief essays about what music meant to them. The first recipients, a pair of sisters aged 10 and 12, received free lessons and a beginner's microphone. At their first recital, they dedicated their song to Courtney, who watched from the front row with tears in her eyes. By the end of 2019, Courtney had evolved from an ambitious contestant to a mentor and recording artist. Each step honored the talent that had first stunned America. Her journey demonstrated that success encompasses far more than fame. It involves sharing music, lifting others, and transforming every challenge into an opportunity for growth. Courtney Hadwin's story reminds us that our dreams can soar higher than we ever imagined if we persist. If this narrative has moved you, know that more remarkable stories await. Stay curious, stay inspired, and never stop believing in the power of an authentic voice.